This is the Times of India Health Plus podcast. It's where we explore specially curated conversations, wellness trends, and lifestyle tips from the TOI newsroom. Stay informed, stay healthy.
Hello, this is Kritika, your host for this episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about excessive screen time usage and how it concerns almost all of us, especially the parents of young kids. And do you know there's a term for this? It's called brain rot. And to talk more about this, we have with us Lavina Nanda, a senior developmental therapist and play practitioner who heads the developmental center at Children's First in Delhi. We also have with us some parents who are going to share their personal experiences of dealing with this. So let's dive straight into this. Hello, Lavina. Welcome to the podcast. Tell us, why do kids get addicted to screens? What's so good about it?
What's so good about it? I think each one of us have to ask this question to ourselves. What good, great is in a fast moving, immediate rewarding, multimodal, like all sound, all movement, predictable, lots of control. There's so much to be offered within a screen. So, yeah, I think I'm at a position of learning that it's not to be isolated to say that children love screens. I think everybody who spends enough time with screens loves screens, or at least is drawn to screens.
No, but now, okay, yeah, we have established that everybody loves screens and especially children because there is so much color, movement, and all of that happening. But our topic today is a little more than screen time, which is brain rot. Why would you say brain rot happens with excessive usage of screen? I mean, we know the scientific or the things that doctors tell us about it, but from your personal experience as a psychologist, what kind of issues do you see in kids and why do you think that happens?
Yeah, I think increasingly I hear the use of brain rot as a popular term being used. I think it is less clinical in nature, more a pop culture term, which also we're almost like I love how we use language, to label something, to put how the communities experience something as a cultural shift or a dynamic thing that is ever changing, ever evolving. And brain rot seems to be something that a lot of people are talking about because it's a very close to our own selves feeling. We feel there is a sense of numbness, there is a sense of need for repetition, compulsive use the pattern, and almost feels like you're really not being able to engage with other things with that kind of rigor. And you're not being able to get that kind of, you said that without really going into the clinical aspect about it, but the flavor of it is like forgetting what you picked up the phone to do,
Yeah.
not being able to follow instructions outside of, when you're really engaged in something, not being able to follow conversations, memory deficits, all that kind of changes in human brain. I think we're kind of clubbing that all to call it brain rot. I
Yeah.
don't see it having a very deep clinical relevance.
Right.
Honestly, as a psychologist, I feel unless we look at it as what is it impacting? Is it impacting a child's emotional dysregulation? Is it about not being able to build relationships outside of the internet world, not being able to again learn in a environment that they're supposed to, not being able to play, so unless I really remove this story of brain rot, I might be doing saying something which a lot of professionals may disagree, but I feel that brain rot does not really explain anything about a child, a family, a story for me. Hence I don't like to use the label. I would say concern is real, it is impacting the brain, but also just the way it's impacting the brain negatively. Children's brain, and in fact everybody's brain, is so adaptable, so relational, that again brain rot kind of limits the adaptability of the brain. You kind of feel like something is just rotten and it's kind of decaying. But yes, it's capable of recovery. It's capable of, changing, because that's the beauty of human brain.
Very interesting when you say that, right? Like we say this sort of dangerous term like brain rot, but when you say that it is also capable of recovery and it is also capable of learning better things, obviously. So I mean, see, why we talk about this term in a serious manner for kids is because this brain is still developing. Right.
100%, yeah.
So when we come to the other aspect of it, you know, how to not get it affected and how it can recover and also learn better things. For that, I would also like to involve two parents that I have on my podcast today. Hello to both of you. We have Richa Pandey with us, who's a lawyer and who also has a platform that encourages kids to read. And we have Sushmita, who's an architect. Richa has two kids. One is a 14-year-old and one is an 18-year-old. And Sushmita has a 6-year-old. So they're both experienced parents. Lavina, our expert, also is an experienced parent. But today she's in the capacity of a psychologist. So I'm not going to ask parent questions to her. I'm going to direct the parent questions to Richa and Sushmita. So hello to Richa.
Hi, Kritika. It's good to meet you and good to meet Lavina as well.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here with all of you. And I was listening to what Lavina had to say about brain
Hmm,
rot, and
right.
I could just make out the putrid smell that comes out of the brain rot. I think it's a very all-encompassing term that we have been using. Yes.
Right. But like you were talking about how this is used so frequently for kids, and you have the experience of raising two boys. One is a teenager and one is a young adult. So when they were growing up, how did you deal with the screen addiction and how did you limit their screen time, or let's just say how did you engage them in better productive things?
Okay, so one, because I'm a lawyer, so let
Hmm.
me start from the beginning. So, because I'm a lawyer, Meta has been sued in the United States of America for making the content addictive.
Hmm.
So let's face the fact first. It is addictive. If you're into scrolling, you just go on scrolling. It's just not something that you can easily get out of. But of course, it is a possibility. It can be done. Now, how did I handle the addiction vis-a-vis my children? Uh, they never became addicted.
That's great. You should tell us how not.
So, because they did not get addicted, there was no reason to cure
Hmm.
anything as
Hmm.
such.
Hmm.
So, I think we as parents are at fault first before anyone else. We cannot blame children. There is no reason why you can say that a 6 year old or an 8 year old, or for that matter, I've seen children as young as 2 years old being addicted to anything, least of all a screen. It's basically our fault because you're too busy,
Yeah.
because you're doing something, because you do not want to engage the child, you just hand over a screen. Now, I don't understand how we can blame the child for being addicted for something like that. So, first and foremost, being a parent does not mean that you have to tick a box, it means that you have to be engaging. And if you cannot engage with your child, heaven knows where you'll get engaged. It's very, very difficult then. So that's the first thing that I think the blame should lie at the correct doorstep, which is the parents,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely not the children.
Right.
So the first thing that I have two boys. So one is a teenager now, and the other is a young adult, like you had already mentioned.
Yeah.
Now with both of them, the first thing was the concept of getting bored.
Hmm.
So we have a very interesting proposition in our house, and they keep repeating it to people that mom says only boring people get bored.
Actually, Richa, very interesting that you say that because I was about to come to this. When we keep talking about keeping our child engaged, do this, do that, but the concept of boredom is also something that children should explore. They should be bored so that they
Absolutely.
can think what to do.
That's absolutely right, Kritika.
Yeah.
That what you're saying is so true, and it is not only true for children; it's true for all of us. Unfortunately, nowadays you will find that the one person you don't want to sit with is yourself. So either you don't like yourself, or there is something drastically wrong with your own personality. Why can we not sit at peace with ourselves for 5 minutes, even for 5 minutes? You're always looking for something. Did I get a notification? Was there a WhatsApp? It's literally like there is going to be, you're going to jail if you don't answer your next WhatsApp within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. You enter the metro,
Hmm.
you get into the metro, and you can see everybody is down and they are scrolling.
Right.
It's like I forget about the brain rot, but your spine is definitely gone for a six, because
That's true.
you have a perpetual, cervix problem you'll have, because you're perpetually bent like that.
Yeah.
It's not only the children, all of us. And what's the harm in sitting with yourself? Just quietly get a little bored. And that's how you will differentiate it with excitement, right?
So you let your boys get bored.
No, I don't. I don't let myself get bored. So every time I'm told that they are getting bored, I generally come up with, why don't you sing for me? Or why don't you dance for me? And believe me, they've decided it's safer to get bored than to tell
Then
this
to do
lady,
this. Okay.
because she's going to tell us to sing or dance or tell her some joke or something like that. So they don't want to do that. So they are like, okay, it's safer to get bored. Let's
Very
just sit.
interesting.
So I think that was one. Again, like you had mentioned, Kritika, that uh, I run a reading platform for children, which encourages and children to read. It is for forming the habit of reading. That is what I try to inculcate.
Right.
And thankfully, I have been able to manage that with both my boys and with a lot of other children. So I feel it's like Lavina mentioned, that the content, when the content is really addictive.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
really, if you're scrolling, you want to
Yeah.
do that. But the same thing can be achieved with a really fast-paced book.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it's not like if you're reading something and if you're engrossed or immersed in something, that is a perfect anecdote to scrolling.
Let me take this point about reading and finding that same kind of excitement in a book to Lavina. Lavina, do you think this can happen? I mean, because we are adults and I'm sure all of us do read also. So we know the excitement that a book can give, but then how do you do the same for a child? Who only wants to watch things and wants to skip that effort. I'm talking about children who can read, you know, from the age that they start reading.
I think it's, if we're talking about like a cross section today, and I'm saying that, oh, my child is looking like they're dependent on, get onto screens to getting that kind of stimulation, and I'm like, okay, let me replace it to reading. That's like asking a bit much from any human, right? So I think these things are cultivated over, years, and
Right.
you have to. And also, the biggest thing is, as a parent, as
Mm.
family members, there has to be a culture of
Right.
engaging with books, engaging with, tinkering with things around the house. The toilet is not working, can we figure out how to, fix it? Alongside, even if we're calling the plumber, can we be around the plumber and see what the plumber is doing? Like, I don't want to say, like, book reading is the hero and the phone is a devil. It is a devil. But to say that suddenly this black and white of polarization, children don't get attracted by this,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
their hearing is, I am a monster who's watching something, and you giving me a thing which is supposed to be good. I'm
Mm.
going to find it very hard to start reading the way you're expecting me to. So
Mhm.
even like staying and flipping to pages and feeling the boredom, as we were talking about right now. But the fact is that if a child can do something, I always say it, if they can do something, they will do. There is no thing stopping them if they can, I mean, when I say can, if there's an ability and there's a um, environment created for it, they will do it. So I would say adults around you should be like adults around the child should be reading.
Yeah.
They can be on the phone all the time and be like,
Right.
oh, I need to respond to this WhatsApp and this
Yeah.
phone call and this what message, or check my Instagram again and again.
Yeah.
But you should be reading,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if you're getting bored, where's your book,
Yeah.
so if this kind of prescriptive teaching how to read, or telling them how to read, I mean, for a second I would say I'm jumping into the role of a parent. We have been reading with our baby when he was like, since the moment he started sitting, like
Yeah.
7 months, 6 months onwards, there were books around, and
Mm.
books were not like, oh, we want you to be a reader, we want you to just look at images
Yeah.
in the slow form, we want you to talk about things with us. So I'm just addressing the book thing, that you have to cultivate a culture of reading. I am not a ferocious reader. I struggle, possibly because of my own attentional regulation things, but I make sure, even if I read slow and it's difficult for me to stick to a book, I have constantly a book around me, so I'm able to model that, and I have it in my bag. I have it when I'm traveling. So it's about the mindset of reading that is offered to the child. So model before we preach
Right.
anything, and do it yourself as much as you can.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. So, I think the best way to go about it is to create an environment in the house. And when they see books around and, less of a phone usage, no TV switching on in front of them, or, and
Yeah.
they see more people reading to them, singing to them, and, playing with them. And that's how they build a sort of habit. Like you said, it can't happen overnight that you're addicted to screen, give it up, start reading. That can't happen.
I guess I again go back to one philosophical thing, like principle thing, not even philosophical, I feel principle thing about children and childhood.
Right.
I always remember sharing this with parents, that play is a child's occupation,
Right.
like there is play, eating, sleeping, bathing, doing their chores. That's their occupation. They're supposed to be doing that, right? Like birds fly, fish swim, children play.
Right.
And when it's as simple as that, if
Yeah.
that's the gap you're experiencing and that is being replaced by anything, and play can be books, play can be breaking a toy, play can be outside in the open. If any of this gets significantly percentage wise replaced by a screen, it's like, let's take stock of things, and let's take stock of the access that the child has. So if
Right.
there is access, especially for the little children, the access can be built and designed according to, just by the virtue of you being larger humans and children being smaller humans,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
eventually, yeah, the sense of control and all of that shifts, and then you can't establish it as they get into, as Richa was telling us about her young teenager and young adults. At that time, it's hard to do. Not saying impossible to do, but it's hard to do, because then there is a sense of equality. There is a sense of children have that agency. They have a mind of their own. So
Right.
do babies, but
Yeah.
it is easy to get them to access certain things physically. And if you establish the norm at that time, I think just the pathway ahead becomes a little bit more like, there's a unison. You're doing it collaboratively then.
Got it. Got it. Let me quickly come to Sushmita now. Sushmita, you have a 6-year-old, and this is an age where kids are looking for quick stimulation and entertainment and all of that. So, how are you managing your child?
Yes, so I'll actually circle back to what both Lavina and Richa said about having, like a parenting philosophy. And also, children get bored when they are boring people. So, in fact, last year, towards the end of last year, I appeared as a mentor to students of IIT Delhi for one counseling session for their career choices, and they had to select an alumni for speaking to. And one of the students which came to interact with me, I asked them, like, why did you select my profile? And it had to be a 20 minutes long conversation. And one of the students told me, because ma'am, we felt you have done some cool things in life. So I think the boring part gets taken care of here. And like Lavina was saying, we introduce kids early to these hands on activities. And though she was a COVID born baby, lockdown baby, and we really had a rough time starting out as parents and for her as a kid as well. But eventually, the mainstay of my parenting philosophy was that henceforth, parenting should be a joyful experience. It should be a joyful journey for all of us. Because in Indian society, I believe we tend to become very outcome based. Bacha bada hoke kya banega, etc., etc. But for me, it was like, let's live these childhood years with as much delight and joy as possible. And so when it comes to, screen time and brain rot, I think again, brain rot does not actively figure anywhere in my parenting philosophy. Rather, I try to engage my daughter in reading. I'm also a heavy metal drummer, so I teach her drums at home, as much hands on activity as possible. In fact, at her school also, the school counselors, PT teachers, they encourage 90 minutes of rigorous physical activity. And I'll just share something. My daughter is very, very fond of rabbits. And she gets so much in character that even when she's at home, she's hopping like a rabbit. So initially, I was a bit puzzled that is this a good thing? But then I gathered that when it's raining outside and with this kind of heat, when we can't go to a park, it's actually a good thing that she's doing this exercise on her own. Not all addiction to the screen is bad. One can make the best use
Hmm.
of it, but the time has to be regulated. So even now, when she
Hmm.
watches something, there is a fixed time for her. When she watches Peter Rabbit at her end, it's very interesting for her, very entertaining. But there are times when she comes up with these ideas from what she has seen, like with a cake
Right.
recipe. So she narrated an entire cake recipe from what she watched on the YouTube video. But for me, it was a delight when we went back to the kitchen and we replicated the same recipe hands on. Like I bought all the
Wow.
ingredients for her, and that also kind of built trust in what she's watching, that she can make sense of it, right? So I mean, whatever little screen time she gets, I try to ensure that it's productive and it's helpful, and she can channelize it into something purposeful. And for me, again, like a part of the parenting philosophy is a child led responsive parenting, not helicopter parenting, not conscious parenting, but a very responsive parenting. So the other day, when she came up to me with a country's name, she was asking me, like, where is Singapore? So I was quite happy that she's curious about the world around her. So I got her this little 3D globe that she can rotate. And I think she found it more interesting than a screen. I stay away from screen. I don't have any OTT subscription. I don't binge watch
Oh,
Netflix,
that's
not
interesting.
even
Hmm.
away from her. So I think for us millennials, yeah, it's kind of a it's tough to stay away from screen, but I actively do it so that my child has a precedent at home to not indulge in excess screen time.
Yeah, so to lead by example is all what Lavina was also saying. So, ladies, any closing thoughts? Because we are sort of, I'm really sorry, but we are a little short on time. But the topic is such that we can just keep on talking about it.
Yes. In fact, I had a question for Lavina.
Please go on, please ask.
We speak of attention span for children, that kids are lacking attention span, whereas I feel it's a paradox. They have all the time in the world to obsessively look at a screen for hours and hours. So, but when they are in the classroom, they don't want to listen for more than 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So, I think this is one query I had for Lavina with respect to the paradox of attention span.
So, it's almost like if I the ability to stay glued to a fast moving screen is very different from an ability to sustain attention to learning to real life tasks to conversation, because a fast moving screen is one not expecting, like right now also I'm talking to you all, or when you were saying something, Kritika was nodding her head, telling you non-verbally that she's listening, she's absorbing, she's getting what you're saying, or she said that, tell us more about your child and their experiences. So there was a reciprocal response back, yeah. And now if you think about it, like in a screen has no expectation of that sort. Screen is just going with it. Alongside, you can be processing, thinking while you're watching screen, but there is, as I said, that there no expectation. Also, the difference between captured attention and self-directed attention. I'm sorry, I'm using some like technical words, but this is what my understanding has been, that short form videos, gaming, these platforms which are meant to scroll, they are designed to, as we were talking about, stimulate in a certain way. So if you've also noticed, if you see an old style animation like a old Disney Mickey Mouse to today, if you I recently watched Mario with my child on screen, I had a headache watching that. Maybe like I'm old enough to not be able to capture, but there were every screen shot for such rapid, like such short time. Also, if you play old style Mario and analog Mario, or like those kind of Marios on even PlayStations, and then you play Super Mario, the speed is very different, and that's what brains are getting designed to do. So attending to learning requires very different parts of the brain. And if you even do a functional MRI to the brain, and if you're doing, let's say, listening to a teacher in a math class, or like, even a story, the activation of the brain is seen in very different parts or somewhat different parts. But when you're seeing a passive visual of a story, it's a very different thing. So I'm sure Richa can vouch for it, that telling a story is very different from watching a story, and watching the same story, because telling is when you're sharing a part of you, and attending to that requires a very different parts of your brain, different new, also it's neurally wiring you for that relational aspect. And screens don't have a relational aspect. In fact, when they do have a relational aspects, let's say with the newer AI versions, or with the world of gaming, where there are relationships being built through, navigating gaming structures, that's also a very different hole to dig, and then that relational tendencies go even more deeper and probably can be more dangerous, right? So I would say attending to learning language is a lot of work for the child. Watching screen is no work for the child while they're attending. A little work, not no work. Let's not be very mean to babies watching it.
That was a great question, Sushmita, and really good, topic to delve into, Lavina. Thank you so much for that answer. Richa, is there anything that you would like to ask Lavina now that we have her on board with us?
I would just like to agree with Lavina, like she said, that, there is a lot of difference when you're watching something. The number of senses which are engaged are absolutely different. When you're hearing something, somebody's telling you a story, again, the engagement is on a very different level. Your brain is engaged on a very different level. The same way, when we talk about reading, your senses are again engaged in a very different manner. Your imagination is working overtime. So a lot of these different things tend to happen at different points in time. And I believe that human brain has the power and the capacity to accommodate all of them. Having said that, now let's face it, it's not like the screens are going anywhere.
Yeah.
They are here to stay. They are here
Yes.
to stay. So what are we looking at? So first and foremost, we are not looking at screens. What we're talking about here today, we talked about addiction.
Yeah.
So addiction, I think Sushmita and Lavina both mentioned that addiction to any kind, any sort of addiction, is obviously harmful. Screen addiction, of course, is harmful. There are a number of things that you'll talk about, and I think we all heard it. I heard it when I was a kid. बहुत टीवी देखोगे आंखें खराब हो जाएंगी. It just went on and on. But I don't know. My eyes, I have reading glasses now, so I don't think it happened. But I didn't have a TV either. They're different people, they have different ways of expressing things and different ways of going about it. But another thing which I again would like to, like Lavina also mentioned, Sushmita also mentioned, so there has to be a lot of engagement. You've got a fellow human being, a little human being along with you, so there has to be engagement. And here, let's cut a little slack for the parents also. We are first time parents. It's not like we were born as parents. We were kids. We became parents. We are learning. We become parents when we have children. So we are learning. We are bound to make mistakes and we are bound to learn by them as well.
Right.
So I think that is important. So I think that is why, Kritika, this kind of podcast is very important, because at least it highlights something that is happening in society, something that can be addressed in society. And that I think is very important. With regard to my, because I have two boys, but so it's kind of funny because a lot of people tend to talk about children and say, and I got those those doomsday prophecies as well, where they said, wait till they become teenagers, then
Yeah.
you'll get to know.
Yeah.
But I think I heard it almost every 2 years. First, there were the terrible twos, then there is going to be, God knows, something fours, and then sixes, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
eights, and it was just
There's
going on.
always something.
Yeah, there was always something really
Yeah.
drastic going to happen to
Yeah.
me when my children turned that particular age.
Yeah.
It did not. It does not. Please chill, relax, be their
Thank you for
friend.
saying that to all
Yeah,
the parents out there. Please hear.
it's ridiculous. I mean, why would you think that?
Plus,
But
the
please,
way you said that we are parents for the first time, children are also childrening for the first time, you know?
absolutely. So we are all bound to make mistakes. Let's
Yeah.
make them together, have fun about them together. And you are, when you're making mistakes, okay, I think when you're making mistakes together, you're creating memories. And you will look back and you will smile and laugh about it. So let's do that.
That's a wonderful thought, Richa.
What's so wrong in that? I mean, what's so wrong in making mistakes? We all do. It's all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
One last thought from all of you. Can you define in one line or just a couple of lines on what you think is brain rot and what does it mean to you? I'll go to you first, Lavina. I know I asked you this before, but I want to
I
sum
mean,
it up.
I already kind of said it quite in detail. I'd take a jab at it again,
Yeah.
but a little differently because that's the bit that we didn't speak about.
Hmm.
I think for me, looking at brain rot or brain screens leading to brain rot is when the child or the family is experiencing intense disruption in regulation. So there are lots of these fights and lots of angry outbursts or distress amongst people when the screen is taken away, when there is disruption in routines, any kind of circadian rhythms, when there's sleep is impacted, when there's feeding, the child is not eating or the nutrition aspect is not being able to get managed, and sleep deprivation is a whole, like for me those are the things that actually one needs to actually think about. So if we actually don't stick to the whole brain rot and screen come karo and all of that, let's all fix our sleep as a family. Let's all fix, like, what time are we eating? Let's eat together more often. If the routines and circadian rhythms and just doing things connectively as a conversation is more, and screen addiction is not like this fear mongering thing, I think
Yeah.
screen will be just one more thing in our lives. But right now, again, easier said than done. Brain rot for me will be more about disruptions in lack of play, lack of engagement, lack of relationships, difficulty in regulation, difficulty in these circadian rhythms.
Great, great. Thank you so much for that thought, Lavina. I'm gonna come to you now, Richa. One or two lines. What do you think? Brain rot. What does it mean to you?
Well, it happens in so many different ways, but I think well, if I think for a child to develop and grow properly, there has to be a balance of everything. There has to be a balance of physical activity and intellectual activity and the academics and whatever, whatever. And I'm not talking only about babies, I'm talking about till possibly till they become young adults or a little later than that. So, if any of these activities are being affected because there is focus on one singular activity more than necessary, then that, as per me, is not developing your brain the way it should.
Got
So,
it.
if you want to call it brain rot, call it that. But if you want to call it like, you are not actually letting the child develop, so
Right.
it's a problem. It could be anything that they do. And here again, I would refer back to what Lavina said. So I do a lot of reading. I
Hmm.
love books. I read lots. My boys read lots. But the familiarity has to be there with books. And there seems to be a maxim that, reader parents will have reader children because they have a familiarity with books. They're always touching and feeling. Like my younger son, he couldn't read most of those books, but he knew the title of the books, the author, and the blurb. Oh, I know this book. And he doesn't know what is inside, but he
Right.
knew each and every book, like he had a representative idea. So give it to them. Let them explore, let them touch, feel.
So that's the kind of environment you gave to your child,
Absolutely.
and then that sort of shows.
It will show. It is
Right.
bound to show. It is
Right.
bound to show.
Sushmita, now to you. Brain rot. One or two lines. What do you think?
Yes, so like I shared my own journey of trial and experiment with the screen when screens were not that popular, and also my own way of figuring out a healthy boundary and a healthy relationship with the
Hmm.
screen. Though I was very productive with screens, yet I had to set some very healthy boundaries. And like Richa was saying, in fact, I have attended her book readings, which go on for more than 90 minutes. Kids are sitting in rapt attention without looking anywhere else, just
Wow.
focused on the books, the Q&As, so which is a delight. And I love taking my daughter to these book readings as well. And thank you so much, Ledina, for answering the question. And as Richa was saying, like, we as parents, we probably hand out a mobile to the child to keep them engaged while we are busy. But to counter that, I used to take my daughter along in the kitchen with me when I was cutting vegetables. That's how she learned what are real fruit names, about colors, about how to count them. So that was a way to kind of integrate her attention into our daily routine, and that really helped her
Right.
not actually get addicted to screens. And I'm so thankful to Lavina for having answered the question of the attention paradox. I hope more and more kids take to real life hobbies, engage with the people around them, and explore the joys of growing up.
Yeah, in fact, that was a very interesting point, and thank you so much for that, Lavina. Lavina is our expert today for everyone listening out there. We had a parent, Richa Pandey, who has two sons. One is a 14-year-old and one is an 18-year-old. We also have Sushmita with us, who has a 6-year-old daughter, and all these three wonderful ladies shared some amazing experiences and amazing insights with us. Thank you so much to all three of you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kritika, for just bringing us today together to even have this conversation. I think it's always really nice to engage with people who are just making these mistakes together,
Yeah, like
open to
we
it.
just said, yeah, we're all learning together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Kritika.
Thank you so much, Kritika. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to all of you.
Don't tune out yet. It's time for the nutrition power tip of the week from nutritionist Sangeeta Iyer.
Respect circadian rhythm. Consistently sleeping late, irregular meal timings, and poor sleep quality can disrupt the body's natural circadian rhythm, affecting hunger and satiety hormones. It can also affect your energy levels, cravings, blood sugar regulation, fat loss, and muscle maintenance.
Thanks for tuning in to the Times of India Health Plus podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or the TOI app. And if you have a health topic you'd like us to discuss, write to us at toihealth.plus@timesofindia.com. Stay healthy and see you next time.